Alright, so I want us to quickly work on the messages functionalities, and we're quickly going to work on the part one of this part of the video, right? So let us quickly do our first thing by first of all creating a page dedicated for dynamic conversations and that's where we are going to be displaying our messages, right? So first thing is we're going to come into the app folder, and then we'll go into the conversations. Then inside the conversations we are going to create a folder, and then this folder is going to be named what? Conversation ID. Nice and clean. Then after naming it like this, what we want to quickly do is we want to come here and create a file called what? Page.tsx. Nice and clean. Alright, then right after doing this, what else do we want to make sure we do? Now the next thing we want to do is we want to quickly create an interface. Okay, so we would say what? Interface, then we say iparams, then we open up this curly braces, then we see what's conversation ID, and then this conversation ID is going to be what? String. Okay, so right after being able to do this, we have to make sure that this one is a capital P. Nice one. So right after being able to do this, the next thing we're going to do is let's just use our AFCE to quickly create this really simple component here, or with this really simple function here that will just change the name towards conversation ID. Simple. So conversation ID. Nice. So conversation ID. So yes, conversation ID. Nice and clean. Then after we just clean this up, and then we leave it like this, then we start by saying that this is going to be an asynchronous function, and then we would make sure that we do what? We pass in the params here. Then we will come here and set the type for the params to be what? Params. Then we set it to be what? iparams. Nice one. So right after being able to work on this, the next thing we want to do is we want to go into the actions and then create a couple of actions, right? The first action we want to create is we want to create the get conversation by ID action. So get conversation by ID.ts, and then the next one is we want to say what? I want to say get messages.ts. So get messages. Nice one. Okay, so right after we've been able to set this up, the next thing we are going to do is we're going to go to we're going to come into the get conversations by ID, and then the first thing we'll do is let's just do the RAFCE to just generate it nicely like this. Then we clean up this return that we have in here. When we go back, yeah, so okay, so for this particular part, right, for this particular part, we will definitely use this part like this. So okay, so let's just leave it and let's just come here, right, and let's quickly work on the action. Okay, so inside the action here, what we are quickly going to do is the first thing is we're going to quickly make sure that this is an asynchronous. So this is an asynchronous function here. Then we make sure that what we pass in the conversation ID. Nice and clean. Then we set it to be a type what? String. Right. So right after doing this, the next thing we want to do is we want to quickly come and create this try catch block here, right? So we'll say try. I want the snippet to come, so we use it. Nice one. So then we set the type to be any. Then what we'll do is we just return null in case there is an error. Nice one. All right, so right after doing that, what else do we want to do? We want to say const what? Const current user. Const current user is equal to what? Await get current user. Okay, then we just initialize that nice and clean. Then right after that, we want to come and then say what? If okay, so if there is no current user dot email, right? So if there's no current user dot email, then what are we trying to do? Then what are we going to do? We want to return null. Okay, nice and clean. Then right after that, what else do we want to do? We want to now query the message, right? We want to now get the message or the conversation, right? So for that, we just say conversation is going to be what? Await what? Prisma. But now we have to import this Prisma that we are trying to use, right? So how are we going to do that? Let's quickly come to the top here, and yeah, I think we can clean this. We can just clean this. Quickly come to the top here and just import Prisma. So Prisma from, then we see what? App slash what? So app slash what? Libs slash what? Prisma DB. Okay, nice and clean. Then right over here we just say what? Prisma dot what? Conversation, right? Then we say what? Find by find unique, and then so find unique, then we open it up and then open up this curly braces, nice and clean. Then we see where are we finding it. We are going to be checking the ID, and then we'll match it with what? The conversation ID that we are going to be passing through the parameter. Okay, so once we are able, once you're able to match it, what we're going to do is we're quickly going to come here, and then we're going to include what? Users, and then we are going to set that to what? True. Okay, that is it. So yeah, that's basically it. Then at the end of the day, all we need to do is to come here and then come and return the conversation. It's nice and simple. So right after we've been able to work on this and make sure that it has been exported, okay, so it's already done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the get messages.ts, and then we are going to basically do something similar. So in order for us not to waste too much time, let's just copy this whole thing and then come to the get messages, and then we just paste it here, right? Then you see this name here, we just select it, and then I'll do Control F2 to select all instances of it, and then I'll just say get what? Messages, nice and clean. Then over here we'll make sure that we return an empty array for the error. Then we'll go right above here, and then we'll do a few more checks. Okay, so over here what we need to do is can clean this, we can clean this, we can clean this, nice and clean. Okay, then over here all we need to do is change this to messages. All right, then we'll see what? Prisma dot what? Message. Okay, then we'll see what? Find mini. So find mini. All right, then where are we getting it? We are going to be getting it from where? The conversation ID. So conversation ID is going to be what? Conversation is going to be mapping or matching with conversation ID. Then we make sure that inside the include over here we take the sender. Okay, the sender, we set it to true, and then we can just copy and paste and then change this to what? Scene. Okay, scene, and then that should also work out like how we expect it to. All right, then right after that we need to make sure that we are ordering, so we just say order by, and okay, order by, then inside we make sure that we take the created at property, and then we set it to what? Ascending. That is because inside your messages displayed in your conversations, you want to display the latest messages at the bottom and then the older ones on top, type of situation, unlike this one where you need to display the latest conversations on at the top, and then the latter ones and then the earlier ones below, right? So right after we've been able to do that, what we need to do is, you see the return over here, all we need to do is to just Yes, it's responding now. So we just select it and then we'll say what messages. Nice and clean. Okay, so right after that, what we want to do now is we want to now go back. All right, we want to quickly go back into our conversation ID that we have inside this page.tsx here. Then we are going to now set up a few things. Okay, so inside here, what we are going to do is we're going to say const conversation, right? Const conversation, and then this conversation is going to be equal to what? Await get conversation by id. Which gets conversation by id, then we pass in with the params dot conversation id, right? Then all we need to do is to just take this, copy and paste it like this. Then we change this particular part to what? Messages. So we just see what? Messages. All right, nice and clean. Then we just take this part, clean it up, and just see what? Messages as well. Nice and clean. And then you can see that we've imported both of them nicely. Now after doing this, right, what we want to quickly do is we want to come here and then say, oh, let's check if there is no conversation that exists, right? If there is no conversation that exists, then what do we want to do, right? We want to quickly return what? So we want to quickly return this div, and then this div is basically going to be having a few class names. Okay, so this div is going to be having a few class names, which is what? First class name is what? LGPLAT. Okay, LGPLAT. Then we set the h full, nice and clean. Then inside here, then inside this div here, what else do we want to do? We want to apply another div. Okay, nice and clean. Then this div is going to have a class name. So class name of what? H full, right? H full flex and flex code, nice and clean, right? Then inside here, what we are going to do is what? Write the empty state. All right, nice and clean. Then this one we have to set it to also conversation. Okay, so right after we've been able to do this, if we want to see the changes, I think for the most part we need to, like, I'm coming, need to expand or something like that. So yeah, messenger clone, yeah. So yeah, so I think let's try to enter one conversation. Okay, so yeah, you can see that it is here like this, and obviously isn't looking good. So we are going to work on it as soon as possible. Now, okay, so it's here, right? Nice and clean. So we are going to work on it quickly. Now the next thing we want to do is, you see what we just did here? Let's just copy this, right? Just copy this return over here, and then let's just paste it here like this. Okay, we'll paste it here like this. Then right after pasting it, what we want to do is inside here, inside this place that we have the empty state, right? What we are going to do is you're going to pass in the header conversation. Okay, so we just see what header, so header, and then we just close it, right? Then we are going to create like this imaginary prop that we are passing through. So we say conversation is equal to what? Conversation. Okay, all right. So as you can see, this header doesn't exist. That is why we are getting our errors, right? So what we want to do is inside here, inside this conversation id, we want to create our components folder. Okay, so inside this components folder that we have here, what we are going to create, the first thing we are going to create is going to be the header.tsx, nice and clean like this. and then inside the header.tsx, what we are quickly going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is RAFCE, nice and clean. So right after this has been done, what we quickly want to do is we'll come here, right? Or let's even set it to be use client so that we don't experience any unnecessary errors. Okay, so use client, nice and clean. All right, so what we want to quickly do is we want to come here and we just pass in the prop that we passed before. So we just see what's conversation, nice one. So if you remember, inside this, is it the page? So yeah, you can see that we passed in this conversation prop, and then we passed in this value. So inside the header, you want to make sure that you're receiving this conversation prop right here. Then right after that, let us quickly come and work on the interface. So we are going to say interface header props, okay, interface header props, and we are going to say what, conversation. Then this conversation, okay, let us fix this conversation, nice one. So yes, so this conversation is going to be the type of conversation from the Prisma client. Then we are going to do what, we are going to extend it by setting the users to be what, the type of the array of the original users. So I'll say user, and then I'll just set it like this, nice and clean. Then right after, we need to make sure that the header component recognizes this, right? So we are going to take this react package .fc, and then we open it up like this, and header props, nice and clean. All right, so right after setting this up, we are good to go. So inside here, inside the components, what we want to first of all do is we want to be able to store our other user data. So I'll say other user here like this, nice and clean. Then what else do we want to do? We want to say what, use other user, and then we just initialize it here. Then we pass in what, the conversation, nice and clean. All right, so use other users data has been collected and stored. And what else do we want to work on? We want to work on the status of the chat or the other user type of situation. So we'll just see what status text is equal to use memo. Okay, use memo, we open that up, we set up our default use memo here, open it up, set the empty dependency array, nice one. All right, then right after working on that, what we're going to do is I'm just going to open up this if right here, and I'll just say what, conversation dot is group, right? So we are checking if the conversation is a group chat, right? What do we want to do? We want to make sure that we are returning the status of the chat as the number of group members that we have, instead of like maybe an active or last seen or something like that, right? So we just bring the backticks, and then we bring the $sign and the curly braces. Then we can see what, conversation dot what, dot users dot length, that is right. Then we just make sure that after we pass in with members, okay, nice and clean. Then right after setting this up, what we quickly want to do is, then that means if it's not a group chat, then we want to return something else, right? We are going to make this dynamic in the future when we have to implement our pusher, but for now we are just going to return active. We're just going to hard code it, so active over here, nice and clean. Okay, so right after working on this, what we quickly want to do is we want to come and work on, yeah, and let's not forget to pass in, yes. So after working on this, we want to really come and work on our actual UI. So for that, we just come here and then set the first div. Okay, so the first div, we're going to create it like this. Then we are going to now come and pass in a few class names. So I'll say class name. Since the class name is going to be quite long, we're just going to give this space here. Okay, so bg white, nice. Then we say what, width full. Then we say what, flex. Then we give it a border b, so border b. Then we give it a 1 pixel size here, nice one. Then we say sm, or on small screens give it px4, nice one. Then we make sure that we give it a padding y of 3, give it a padding y of 3, and then we give it so px2 as well, and we give that one what, 4. Then we come here and then we say that what, on large screens, come and say on large screens, let's make sure that what, px it was 6. Then we see justify what, between, justify between, nice and clean. Let's add our ITC, and then we will do what, shadow sm. So shadow sm, nice and clean. Alright, so right after setting this up for the first, or the largest div, what we quickly want to do is inside here we're going to pass in another div, and then we are going to pass in like a few class names. Those ones are not that much, so we can just make it street. So it's going to be what, flex, and then we give it a gap 3. Then we set the ITC, item center. So that is basically it for the div that is inside. Then inside this div, what we are going to do is you need to pass in the link that comes from what, next/link. So link, and then we just import it. So nice one, and then we can close it now. Then right after doing that, what we quickly want to do is we want to first of all pass in our href inside this link, right? So we take this href, and then this href is quickly going to be something very simple. We can just let's just clean this, yeah, and then let's just pass in what, conversations, nice one. Alright, so it's basically going to be our back button. Right now, inside this link, right, we want to pass in a few class names. Okay, so what are the class names that we want to pass in? The first class name we want to pass in is what, we want to make sure that whenever we're on large screens, we want to keep it what, hidden. Okay, because we only want to make sure that it is shown on mobile screens. Alright, nice and clean. Then we see what, block, and then we see what, text indigo, say text indigo what, 500. Okay, then we come here and then we set a hover property, and then for the hover property we say what, text indigo 600, text, nice and clean. Then we come here and then we say what, you come here and say what, you say what, transition. Okay, so we say transition over here. Then let's not forget our cursor pointer, nice one. Okay, so as you can see, there's nothing showing in here even if I refresh, and that is clearly because we've not put in the elements we need to put in. So inside, we're quickly going to pass in what, hi, and I'm going to see what, hi chevron left, nice one. You can take it from either high or high 2, so that one depends on you. Then we would see what, we'd see that over here we set the size to be what, 32, nice and clean, and then that should allow us see our element more nicely. So you can see it's showing here, nice and clean. Now right after setting that up, we want to make sure that under the link we can show our avatar. So we see what avatar, so we have to import that. So the avatar elements that we created, nice and clean. Then inside we take the user prop here, and then we pass in what other user. So other user, nice and clean. So right after passing that, we should get our avatar showing over there. All right, so now that we've been able to set this up, what we're quickly going to do is we're going to come here, create this really quick div that we have. Then we are going to be passing in a few class names, and then they are going to be what flex and flex co, nice and clean. Then inside here, what we are going to be doing is we're going to pass in the first div, and then this first div is going to be taking in what the conversation name, right? So that is for group chats. So conversation dot name if you are dealing with group chats, right? Or other user dot what name, nice and clean. Then right after setting that up, you should see the change appear over there. All right, so nice one. So after, we want to make sure that right under we can set the status. Okay, so we can come here and then set the status, and then for the status we can just pass in status text. Okay, so status text, and you should see active showing over there. But we are going to apply a few stylings to this so that it looks a bit better. So I'll just say SM, and then you see what font light. Okay, then right after we are going to say what text neutral 500, nice one. Then right after that we should look much better. All right, so after setting that up, what else do we want to do? We want to come 3 divs below here, and right in between the last one and then the last part one, we want to do this. We want to first of all pass in this hamburger menu. So you are going to say what hi ellipse, then we are going to say horizontal. Then inside we are going to pass in a few properties, right? We quickly say size. We want to set the size to 32, then we want to set it to an on click, right? Set it to an on click, and then this on click is going to be this and this, nice and clean. All right, then you're going to set the class name. So the class name is going to be what text indigo 5. So text indigo 500, nice. And then we set the cursor pointer. So cursor pointer, nice and clean. Make sure that if we set a hover, or whenever we hover over this, we want to set what our text to be what indigo 600, nice one. And then we make sure that it's what it's a transition. So transition, nice and clean. All right, so you can see when I hover it shows, and when we expand, you can see that this is our header right here. This is basically it for the first part of building our conversation screen. It is going to be very lengthy and I don't want to keep it that way, so we're going to be moving through this section in parts. Now that we've been able to build a header, then in the next video we are going to be working on the body, and then that is what we're going to be designing over here, and then we just move on to the one at the bottom, and then we should be done. Alright, so next time I will go through that. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video.